Hello, and welcome to Book 4, Chapter 25 of You Should Be Reading. This week, this week, I want to talk to you about an author that I know. Now, full disclosure, right from the start, this author is a friend of mine. He is somebody that I've known for many years now, um, and part of me is going, why did it take this long to get him to talk about him on my show? Well, there's a reason for that, which I'll get into. But full disclosure, he's a friend of mine. He is not sponsoring this in any way. I'm doing this out of the goodness of my heart because I think more people should know about him. So, who is this author? Well, his name is Serdar Yegulalp. I will spell it here for those of you who don't know. And he has written oh, 4 books that I know of. I think there's actually a couple other ones that he's written, and I think he's also written a couple programming books as well. But these are the 4 that I know about, and I'm going to talk about all 4 of them. The first one that I read was this one, Summer World. As you can see, you got this very typical looking art of Japanese samurai type guy with a bow and arrow and a machine gun, apparently. So that's kind of interesting. Uh, it is about a Dr. Hirofumi, who ends up getting a letter from a patient of his who died 3 years ago, saying to come and spend some time with him in the countryside. So he's like, it had to be a prank, but because he's a nice guy, he goes to check it out. And when he gets there to where this letter came from, he ends up finding himself in an entirely new world, a strange world where people have powers and where monsters are real and all kinds of other strange things are going on. And it goes on from there and leads the good doctor on a journey of discovery, not only of this new world, but also of himself as well. And it kind of follows a very typical sort of hero's journey in a way, but also it reads a lot like another story that I read, Tomoe Gozen, uh, which both of them read a lot like the old myths of the Japanese heroes and the gods and the kami and whatnot. It reads very similar to that, and it's really quite amazing. Well worth your time to check out. Um, I will throw a thing at the end of this about his particular where his website can be found. So if any of you want to track down his books, you can do it that way. But that was the first one I read. Then I read the second one, and the second one is called The 4-Day Weekend. Now it's very as you can see, he's got a whole bunch of manga and whatnot, and some blurry pictures of a whole bunch of people walking around. The 4-Day Weekend. Now, this is a novel all about, as they call it, the otaku generation. Uh, People like myself, like my friend, who grew up with anime suddenly exploding onto the scene over here. Anime and manga and all things Japan coming in, being so interesting and new and different from what we'd come to know and love. And that's where it really comes in from. Uh, it's all about a couple of friends, Henry and Winthrop. Uh, One of them, Winthrop, I believe, he owns a comic book store. Henry just ended up breaking up with his girlfriend of 4 years after a dumb argument about salad dressing and Cowboy Bebop. So they decide, rather than, because the one that owns a comic book store, he's feeling very burned out. So they go to the comic convention, uh, the anime convention, which is where it gets the 4-Day Weekend from the title for. Uh, and there they meet a girl named Diane who has no idea of anything to do with what they like anime or anything. She's in the lobby crying because her fiance abandoned her there because she was, I think, having cold feet or something, or along the. It's been a while since I've read it, but he's abandoned her there, and she's like losing it, trying to figure out what she's going to do. So Henry, being the nice guy he is, offers to let, why don't you stay with us? We've got a room. When the weekend's over, we can give you a drive back to the city because we're from there, I do believe, if I remember correctly. And along the way, they end up teaching her all about this culture that they're a part of, this otaku generation, uh, about anime and whatnot. They delve into cosplay, into something called otherkin, is also delved into this book, into the convention culture, the anime culture, and all of the different things around that. It delves into this, and it also explores the personalities of our main characters here, and how things all going on, and maybe there's a little bit of love blooming between Henry and Diane. Interesting, interesting. Uh, Definitely a great book. Uh, it's one of the ones that I read just after I'd been to my first anime convention, because I bought the first three of his books at the convention I met him at, even though I'd known him for a little bit beforehand. Um, so I read it, and it was amazing. It's very down to earth, very slice of life uh, story in this one. Uh, but it also, if anybody out there, parents especially, any of you parents who like to read, who don't know much about the anime culture, about what's going on, this is a good read, as it'll give you uh, some hints. It may be a little bit dated because of some of the references it makes, because new anime is coming out all the time, but the best anime is really timeless. So, 4-Day Weekend by Serdar Yegulalp. Definitely worth your time. The next book that he's written, Tokyo Inferno. Now, you may have gotten the impression so far with some of these that he writes a lot of Japanese culture and whatnot. And this is true. He is a huge fan of the culture. He is a Buddhist as well. And he knows a lot more about that sort of thing. He reads Japanese quite well, as I understand it, and he reads novels in their original Japanese. Um, and he's a fan of several Japanese directors and Japanese authors and whatnot. So yeah, he does write a lot about it, and he does it quite well, I might add. But this one, Tokyo Inferno, it's all about Tokyo in 1923. The earthquake that leveled the city has released evil into the world. 2 years later, a terrified young man roams the newly built metropolis. His only companions, his memories of the girl he once loved, and a sword that belonged to his father, now a malevolent spirit whose only thoughts are of destruction and revenge. This is a lot like Summerworld in terms of being this story that seems like it's a myth or a legend, dealing with this boy and certain other people kicking around the city as he tries to come to grips with his own amnesia and or his own memories, his own past, and his father, who is some sort of a big evil thing. Uh, it really goes quite strange and bizarre. Out of all of his books, uh, I've liked all of them. I've liked reading all of his books, but out of all of them, this one is the one that I would have to put. If I had to rank them, this one would be on the bottom, followed by 4-Day Weekend and Summer World, and then the last book will be on top. If I had to rank them, but I don't. I'm just saying, if I did, that's the way I would do it. But even so, this book still holds up with the other books in terms of how well he has written it. The characters are all very vibrant and very much the sort that really grab a hold of you and you enjoy reading about. The fact that I didn't enjoy this one as much as the other books of his that I've read is on me entirely, because this particular book covers some things in a way that just didn't I didn't it didn't grab me right away. Now it's been a while since I've read this, um, and my tastes in reading do change as I grow older, as evidenced with the chrysalids, because there's stuff in the chrysalids that I read recently that I didn't know when I was younger, and it's been many years since I've read this, so I may give this one another read, give it another try, and see what I can glean from it in the future. Oh God, yes. This was read, I read this shortly after Anime Fest in '09 because that's when he signed it. Wow. It's been, yeah, it's been at least 6 years since I've read this book. So it's been a little while. But it's still a good book. There's a lot of interesting things going on in this one. And it's got some, it deals with demons and spirituality a lot. So definitely worth your time for Tokyo Inferno. But the big one, the big granddaddy, the book of his that I think is a masterpiece, an absolute masterpiece, is this one. And you see how thick this beast is. Not only is it thick, oh, but it is the same thickness as the other three of his books. So this book is like the other three of his that I've read in terms of page count. It's massive. Absolutely massive. It's called Flight of the Vajra. And it is his attempt, and success, I might add, at writing a grand science fiction space opera book. And it's all about about 7 people who you end up meeting. But the first and foremost is Henri, I think it's Henri Sim, who is a Potomac, I think it's Potomac designer. And a Potomac is basically programmable matter. You can use it, any of the different substrates of, or substances of Potomac, Potomac, yeah, Potomac, I think. Oh, I had this in my head, but anyways, moving on. Any of the 5 different varieties of Potomac that's out there can be used to make like clothing or starships or circuitry and whatnot. And he was a starship designer, and he not only had that, but he had a starship designer that basically could go from the land to the sea, back to the land, go up a space elevator, and go out into space simply by transforming itself. And several years ago, his masterpiece starship ended up literally just coming apart. And he escaped in one of the escape pods, but his wife and daughter didn't. So he's been out of the public eye for a while, and he's come back and is moving around like a playboy, so to speak, to try and just make himself visible in the hopes that somebody would try to kill him and he might find some more information about what happened. And along the way, he ends up befriending a young girl by the name of Enid Sully, who is an acrobat with the circus, a traveling circus. A woman by the name of Angharad, I believe it is, or Angarad, who is literally the religious leader of a massive spiritual religion called the Old Way, because there's 2 different belief structures. You've got the high end, who are people who allow themselves to have basically bodies that are like made of Protomic, or if they don't, they've got bodies where their consciousness can be downloaded. So if they die, they just get a new body and stick the consciousness in it, and they live forever. But the old way doesn't believe that. The old way believes in being very much human, because they think the more high end you become, the more you lose what it means to be human. So you have her involved. You have and a hedonistic uh, singer, concert goer, who is like super high end uh, in terms of he's got a body that looks almost but not quite human. um, you've got a pair of interplanetary, basically Interpol for the galaxy, police officers by the name of Calhander, who is a normal guy, police officer, very dour, very serious. Then you've got Ione, who is from the Continuum, which is a world that is literally nothing but a hive mind that went away, built up this big hive mind world where a bunch of people were just consciousness in it, and they've lived like that for hundreds of years. And then they come back and they're like, well, we want to be part of the world again, or the universe. So we're gonna insubstantiate a couple of bodies and stick a personality in it, send them out so they can bring us back information. So she's one of those. And then there's another high-end lady that our concert goer knows, or our concert giver, I should say, knows personally. Those are the seven against the universe, uh, as it says on the back. And what follows is a strange journey centering around Henri and Angarad, with a lot of interesting things in terms of spirituality, uh, as well as society, humanity, morality, and so on. As I said to him, and as I will say to you, this book is basically like someone took a master's, uh, basically a master's level thesis on spirituality and anthropology and basically the human condition, uh, morality, ethics. Took all of that, put it in a blender along with sci-fi and hit frappe because all of that is just shot throughout this book. You've got people that don't think of uh, the old way people as being human because they haven't they haven't upgraded themselves. You've got old way who don't think the high end are human because they have upgraded themselves. Which side is right? Which side is wrong? There is a lot of questions in this book along those lines, and not a lot of answers because uh, like the one main character Angrad, who is the spiritual leader, much like she is, Serdar isn't he doesn't want to answer those questions because those answers would be his answers. He wants you to read the book and find those answers yourselves. And that is fascinating. Uh, and it has some amazing, amazing artwork on the cover, some wonderful little things. I don't know if you can see it there too good. But yeah, it's amazing. And I absolutely love everything about it. Uh, I'd like to see another book or another story set in this world, but given the way he's writing and the way he tends to do things, he doesn't tend to revisit his worlds a lot, which is fine and which I absolutely love because then I get new, more interesting stories from him. So I get to see he's currently working on one I believe called Welcome to the Fold, uh, which he posts now and then on his blog about. I will be putting both where you can find these books and his blog in the description down below. But yeah, he is quite an amazing author. And when I got this book, I'm like, my God, this is massive. And it is. It took me a while to read through it, but it was a delight, an absolute delight to read it. And this, so far, is my favorite book of his. I cannot recommend it enough. So yeah, that's going to be pretty much it for this episode of You Should Be Reading. We went on quite long because I had 4 books to talk about from the author that I chose to talk about today, Serdar Yegulalp. So As always, my friends, I should say, if you like what I'm doing, please give that like button a tap. Give that subscribe button a tap as well if you haven't already, so you can be kept apprised of when I do new videos. I usually try to get at least one video out a week, if not more. And throw a comment in the comment section. Have you read any Serdar Yegulalp? Do you know of any other smaller authors that you think I should know about? Please throw a comment in that comment section. Let me know. And until next time, my friends, remember, you should be reading Serdar Yegulalp. And I'll see you next time.